Good morning, everybody. My name is Vincent Kelly from Energy Action. Welcome to our webinar on how to switch your business to solar. My name is Vincent Kelly. I'm Solar Solutions Manager or Energy Solutions Manager at Energy Action. I've been in the energy industry for around 2 decades now. And my focus, as is Energy Action's focus, is all about reducing energy costs and risk for our over 7,000 clients. As I just mentioned, we support 7,000 businesses, both small and large, over 20,000 sites. And we've been doing that for 2 decades. We are the pioneers of the reverse energy option. We pioneered that back in the late 1990s, and we're now considered to be the experts at that. We conduct around 1,500 of those events each year on behalf of our clients. Today, we're going to talk about the solar journey that you're on. Our remit, as I mentioned, is making energy easier, cleaner, and cheaper. Whilst we've been a procurement business for 20 years, the last, I'm going to say 7 to 8 of those years, the focus has shifted, become very acute with respect delivering clean energy options for our clients. So it's one thing to procure, it's another thing to procure effectively and sustainably, at all times maintaining zero risk, or as far as we can get to zero risk for our clients. We're a company that does walk the talk. We are climate action certified. We are a net zero company for both our offices here and in the Philippines. Now today, courtesy of our great mates over at Smart Commercial Solar, we're going to give you an introduction into solar. Hopefully the guys won't make it too jargony. We'll talk in terms that we can all understand, because for some of you, this will be your first exposure to, not to solar necessarily, but to solar for your business. It probably is coming into sharp focus for a lot of us now, given where energy prices have gone, given all the talk about net zero. So this will be an opportunity for you to be introduced to that journey. Through that, we'll ramp it up a little, have a closer look at what happens into solar. And we'll finish off by giving you a glimpse of the future as we see it, the crystal ball of solar, if you like, and seeing where we can go with future technologies. Now, all the way through this, we're going to be encouraging you to scan the QR code that you see here. I think we're all pretty adept at understanding what to do with QR codes these days. Literally just scan that. That'll take you to a landing page where you'll be able to put in your details, and you can get an assessment through us. Look, without any further ado, I'm going to pass you over to Ewan Hochstetter, who is the founder and MD at Smart Commercial Solar. So take it away, Ewan.
Thanks, Vincent. Thanks everyone for joining us today. Really appreciate you taking the time, and we're about making this simple and very informative. Most of you listening today would have had some exposure to solar, whether you've had it installed on your home, as 30% of Australian homes have solar now, but at least every one of you would have received a phone call at some point from a call centre asking you to get solar. But the reason why you haven't moved is usually one of 3 reasons. One, you haven't needed to think about it till now, and I think, you know, with Energy Action and all the news headlines, you would see that you really need to consider doing something about energy. Or 2, you really haven't been exposed or understood the business proposition, or it hasn't been explained to you properly. And the 3rd reason that most people don't go solar is because they simply just don't know who to trust. And so throughout today, we're going to show you how we built integrity into our processes, and how we build business cases that work for you, for each business, and also the reason why we here finally found someone who we can trust. And we hear that every week. And whilst it's a very noisy marketplace, hopefully after today, you'll go away with enough knowledge to be dangerous, but more importantly, hopefully you can pick up the phone or send us an email and we can get started in helping you on your journey. We've been on this journey for a long time. I actually started in solar about 15 years ago, and there was probably about 80 people in the whole industry, and it's simply exploded since then. And we're now the largest independent commercial EPC or engineering procurement construction company in Australia. We've got a really proud history of working with some of the biggest businesses in Australia, including my favourite one, which is Bunnings. We'll complete their 100th store this year. And we've worked on some of the biggest projects in Australia and all over the country as well. So there's no jurisdiction that we haven't installed a solar system in. And we've got about 1,500 sites under monitoring, and really we exist to help our clients get to 100% renewables. That's our purpose. That's what we want to do, which means that we're a solutions-focused business looking at the problem that you've got, which is something to do with energy. And then we want to build a relationship that lasts over time. These two things are our real key drivers of how we do business and how we're going to improve your business. We're independent, which means that we can have this really special relationship with Energy Action. We're not a retailer, and that means that we're not selling products, we're selling a solution. We're not selling a solar system, we're selling energy over time, which is actually what you're buying when you're thinking solar. We were the first in commercial. We were the first to provide things like performance guarantees. We were the first PPA provider, power purchase agreement provider in Australia. We'll talk a bit more about these things later. And we've been the first in a lot of things. And when you meet my team, our team, I should say, you'll find that everyone in this company is awesome to deal with, really good people. And I'm very proud to have such a well-regarded team. And as a result, we've got the best solar company in Australia. We're driven by our values. That drives everything, our integrity through the process. We take a very sophisticated look at your business. We look at how you use energy over time, and we create a solution to fix the problem of cost and some engineering issues as well. We take responsibility for everything that we do, which pertains to the energy over time situation, and we're very enthusiastic and passionate about what we do. And ultimately, we're trying to do good. We want to help people. We understand that energy touches everyone's lives, and this is me on a roof with one of my engineers. We're installing a system for free to a school in Vanuatu, and that's the sort of opportunity that you get when you partner with us to do your solar. It feeds into other places as well. I'm going to move through a few slides quickly because I tend to waffle a bit, but ultimately we're trusted by a lot of people. We've got a huge raft of well-known brands who trust us and continue to work with us over time. A lot of these brands here we've been working with for 8 years or more. And we've rolled out a huge amount of solar and rooftops and on ground mounts. And to explain how it's going to work for you, I'm going to hand over to Anastasia, who will talk to you about feasibility, ultimately the business case, and how we've built integrity into our process to get you the best result. I'll give it to you, Stas.
Thanks, Ewan. Give us one sec whilst we shuffle things around. Hello, 49 people. We've increased numbers. Do you mind? Is that going to keep happening? All right, good morning. My name is Anastasia. I'm the head of marketing at Smart. Lucky enough to be working at this business for the last 6 years. And I'm going to talk you through the feasibility process, which I'm sure a lot of you are interested in. because really this is the process that we're going to take you on once you sign that QR code and submit your energy bill and energy data. So you've probably joined this webinar to better understand how solar can work for your business. You may have looked at it before, or you're just starting your journey. Wherever you're joining us, you're probably wanting to know what's the best system size for your site and how do we arrive at an agreed design that you can sign off on. So all your questions get answered through our feasibility process, which follows these 4 key steps. So I'm going to talk about the first 3, which is focusing on the energy data analysis, solar feasibility study, and the pre-sale engineering process. And then I'll hand over to Max, and he'll run you through the sales and finance side, and he'll run you through a few really cool procurement options. We can actually move quite quickly through this process and take you to 80% of a solution through our desktop feasibility. And at that point, we'll be presenting the solution, getting feedback from your team. And should you wish to proceed, we'll come to site, firm up the design through that pre-sales engineering phase. So all up, we can take you from inquiry to an executable design within about 6 to 8 weeks, depending on how quickly you want to move through it. So part of my role is designing the proposal tools that we've put together. And these form the core materials that get delivered to our customers through the sales process. I'm really proud of these documents, and I think there's a lot of value in here. They drive powerful insights in how you use power and how solar makes an impact long term. So I'll be showing screenshots of the energy data analysis and solar feasibility study through this webinar. However, I would like to point out the last document you see there, which is the monitoring report. This is something that our service team send out to customers every month once the system has been delivered. And this provides a constant update on system generation, savings, and sustainability outcomes. So these are all very useful tools, but I truly believe that's the most useful tool because it keeps track of your system and makes sure it's on track to hit its performance targets. So the first thing we do is collect your energy data. So what you're looking at here is actually a real-life customer based in South Australia. They're a large manufacturing site operating 5 days a week. We'll actually be following this feasibility of this particular site throughout my presentation. So this is where we start. We hand this to our solutions team, and they're asking the question, what is the best solution for the customer? So they're thinking about things like, is there roof availability? Is there ground availability, or should we be looking at a car park? They're also considering the viability of batteries in hybrid configuration or as an off-grid solution. However, so for the following presentation, we'll be looking at a solar feasibility on a rooftop. So once they've got an interval report, they'll start experimenting to see what's the most appropriate system size based on the consumption of the site. So this is where we enter the core analysis in our energy data analysis. The top line, you can see there, that's the customer's current load, clear bias to weekday operations, not much going on the weekends, and their peak events are occurring during the day. So it's a good site for solar just by looking at their consumption. The second line you see there is the overlaying of solar generation data, and that's modeled using postcode specific sunlight data for the customer's site. So we're trying to build an accurate model of what the solar system's actually going to do if you had it installed in November 2020. The last line there is the reduction in load. So you can see we've made a really big impact. We've reduced their load by 44% in this month. And the dark blue that you see in the bottom line there, the dark blue represents export. Now, this is something that our solutions team are really considerate of because there's a bit of a balancing act. You want to size a system to have the maximum benefit during when you're consuming the most amount of power. So in this case, trying to match that weekday load, but also being mindful that there's an inherent exported power, or the solar that's not being used on the weekend is being sent to the grid. Now, we attach a $0 benefit to export. So if you're generating too much export, it tends to have a negative impact on the payback of the system. So when they're looking at your consumption and sizing a system, they're constantly looking at smaller system sizes versus larger system sizes. But ultimately, the key driver is, what is the best payback? So this is where we now enter the solar feasibility study. Once our team have performed the interval analysis, they start to have a look at your site. They'll pull up a satellite image and overlay panels and start to see if there's, is there enough space, and what does it look like actually on the roof. At this particular site, there's plenty of room for a 500 kilowatt system, as you can see in that satellite image. I've also pulled in a few of the key metrics throughout the document, kind of put them all on one page. But you can see in this example that we've reduced the overall load at this site by 30%. And we're acknowledging there's a 25% export. In this particular case, the customer was happy to accept that level of export because we've got a roadmap in place, which will see them installing more solar and adding a battery later down the line. So some would say export is a loss. Other would say export represents an opportunity in the future once batteries become financially viable to soak that additional solar up and use it later. This is a really good case of solar coming together and stacking up really neatly. So once we've built the interval analysis and the solar feasibility study, really the customer has everything they need to assess the viability of solar, whether it's something they want to proceed with. So at this point, we'd be presenting back to your team, having meetings with your key stakeholders, making sure everyone's across the solution. And should you wish to proceed at this point and firm up the proposal, this is where we enter the detailed design stage or pre-sale engineering. So at this point, we're engaging our pre-sale engineering team. We're starting to firm up the design through a site inspection and learning more about what's actually going on the ground. So we'll come to site with an engineer, and we're looking at things like connection points, where we can lift equipment onto the roof, how to best perform the construction with minimal interruption to your operation. So you can see on this site plan here, we've got 3 proposed crane lift locations. We've got a storage zone outlined, so where we're going to keep equipment through the construction of the project. You'll also notice that the design's changed. So this is an iterative process. In this particular example, the customer preferred to use most of their northern roof and allow for enough roof for the expansion of the system in stage 2. I think that really speaks to our collaboration throughout the process. We always engage the customer through the design and make sure that we're building a solution hand in hand rather than prescribing how the system should be installed. Another key thing is safety in design. This is something our engineers and project team implement early in the design stage. We're constantly engaging you for approvals. So by the time we execute an agreement, everyone has an opportunity to agree and approve the design. The aim here is to avoid any surprises down the line, and it makes everyone's life a lot easier. So as part of this detailed design pack, you'll get a site plan. If in particular situations where we're designing and installing quite large inverter stations, we'll provide 3D drawings to give the customer an idea of how we're going to install these on the site and try and give you the best idea of how this is going to interface with your business. Another key part is the schedule of works. So this outlines the timeframes for applications, procurement, construction, commissioning of the system. This keeps everyone on the same page and gives us a target deadline. So what really sets us apart from other solar businesses, as you can see, the level of detail we put into not only the analysis part of the feasibility, but the engineering and project management of our systems is unrivaled. This is why in this case, this particular client proceeded not only with 500 kilowatts, but 2 500 kilowatts across their manufacturing sites. And yeah, that'll be an exciting case study as well to round back on. But this kind of completes the feasibility process. At this point, the customer has everything they need regarding the design and delivery of the system. And I suppose this probably makes sense to hand over to Max, and he'll explain system costs and procurement options.
Great. Thanks, Anastasia. Don't mind me while we just play musical chairs and I bring up some of my notes. All right, so thanks, Stasi. Look, from here, we're going to talk about financial results and procurement options you have as a business. My name's Max Stenning, and I'm the General Manager here at Smart. I've been here with the business for 6 years and in the industry for over 12. So I've seen a fair bit of movement in our space over my time, especially in the areas of financial outcomes and options customers have when they decide to move forward with solar solutions. So just as an overview of what I'm going to talk about in this section, we're going to talk about factors that influence financial outcomes for solar assets. These include the capital cost of the solar asset, which can change depending on whether it's a rooftop, a ground mount, or a car shade, and also how complex the integration is into your site. Then there's a generation and consumption of the energy generated. As Anastasia mentioned, sizing the system is extremely important in order to achieve the optimal outcome. So there are also things we can do with systems to increase performance that can further influence the financial results. These include adding tilt frames or things like trackers, which drastically improve the generation. Other items that impact the financial outcomes are incentives such as STCs, LGCs, and VEECs, which are dependent on the size of the system or your location. And the most critical piece is the cost of your electricity. To round it out, I'll come back and take you through 2 procurement options, being an outright purchase and a power purchase agreement, as well as show you some real-life commercial outcomes of these 2 methods. So first, on the renewable energy certificates, there's a number of these, and 3 of those are listed here, being STCs, LGCs, and VEECs. STCs provide an upfront benefit to businesses who install systems up to 100 kilowatts in size. The value of this incentive can be up to around 40 grand for 100 kilowatt systems, and it contributes around 30% of the total price of the system. This can improve the feasibility of solar for businesses who don't need significantly sized systems due to their consumption, and it has a material impact on the payback periods and PPA rates that we can offer to clients. For systems over 100 kilowatts, they qualify to generate LGCs. So you're going to get 1 LGC certificate for every 1 megawatt hour your system generates. And you're going to claim those every 6 months, at which point in time you can monetize them either at a fixed price negotiated with a retailer or at the spot price at the time of generation, and you'll continue to generate those LGCs out to year 2030. In Victoria, if you're lucky enough to be based there at the moment and looking at solar systems, you can generate VEECs instead of STCs or LGCs. The benefit of VEECs is that, unlike LGCs, they're all generated in one go around 18 months post-completion of the solar installation. The price of the VEECs at the moment are quite high. They're sitting at around $75 to $80 a certificate, as opposed to LGCs that are sitting at around $50. So customers in Victoria should consider VEECs for their solar installation, as it can significantly impact the payback periods. And we're seeing some payback periods of sub 3 years at the moment, or PPA rates between $40 and $60 a megawatt hour, or 4 to 6 cents a kilowatt hour. Energy pricing. So The electricity market is a major driver for customers wanting to make investments into solar. Energy is a substantial contributor to a customer's retail bill, and any movement up or down here can impact the financial feasibility of solar. So as we can see in the graph provided by Energy Action, energy prices back in 2019, they were sitting at around $60 to $80 a megawatt hour across the NEM. At these prices, the payback period of an average rooftop solar system sits between 5 to 7 years. Since then, we've seen energy prices soften into early to mid 2021. This would have moved the payback period back to kind of 6 to 8 years for some customers. This price softening has been caused by the adoption of cheap renewable energy coming onto the market that has had a positive impact on pricing. However, as can be seen from late 2021 up until today, wholesale energy prices have skyrocketed due to a number of factors as detailed in Energy Action's regular market wraps. These updates are a great source of information for keeping up to date with what is happening around the country. What this does is it makes the case for behind the meter solar even stronger. When comparing to energy rates back in 2019 and payback periods of between 4 to 6 years at that time, now with prices between $140 to $220 a megawatt hour, this equates to payback periods of between 1.5 to 3 years in some cases. This would be at a level that meets most businesses' investment hurdle rates. So now looking at your procurement options, your first option is an outright purchase, pretty simple. If you're considering an outright purchase, you might ask yourself these questions. So, does the asset meet the business investment criteria? Do we prefer to own all of our business assets? My cost of capital, is it lower than the finance options provided after accounting for operational expenses? Are we comfortable with all the potential operational expenses that come with solar? And do we simply want to achieve the fastest return on investment? And look, if you've answered yes to all of those, then an outright purchase is probably the most appropriate option for you. To give you some examples, as well as I guess how the same size system has changed in terms of the financial outcomes over time. We've got here what a 500 kilowatt system, the result of a 500 kilowatt system over 3 different time periods based on the major factor that's changing the wholesale energy price. And we've just picked New South Wales as an example. So as you can see, in 2016, the average wholesale energy price in New South Wales was $88 a megawatt hour. A 500 kilowatt back at that time would have cost you around $725,000 and saved you around $79,000 in energy savings, and also produced around $25,000 a year in LGC income. This results in a payback period of around 7 years in 2016. You can see in 2019 that the wholesale energy price in New South Wales actually reduced slightly, so it went back down to about $79 a megawatt hour. But you can see there was actually a heavy decrease in the capital price for that 500 kilowatt system, down around 13.7%. But because the energy price had softened, the payback period from between 2016 and 2019 actually didn't change that much. So we're still around that 7-year mark. Now, if you have a look at wholesale prices today in New South Wales, sitting around $200 a megawatt hour, the system price has only come down around 4% from 2019. It hasn't really moved that much, but you can see that the payback period, because of the savings per annum at now $155,000, the payback period is now 3.5 years for that same 500 kilowatt system. So I guess, look, if you looked at solar in the past and you've probably seen these financial results, you can obviously see now's the best time to be looking at an outright purchase if that's the decision your business wants to go down, because the financial results are superior. So here's an example of a business, Fraser's Property, who engaged us to install solar via an outright purchase. Fraser's business is well set up to understand the operational requirements of solar assets, as they've been installing solar on their sites for many years. Fraser's were looking for the best quality installation that was going to deliver the fastest returns for their business. hence the reasons why we went down that path, and we continue to do more business with Fraser's Property under this model. So next I'm going to talk about power purchase agreements. A PPA is your second option. It's where we install the system for free at your site, and you simply pay for the electricity that the system generates, but you're going to pay for that at a much more competitive rate than your current retail electricity rates. So if you're considering a PPA, you might ask yourself these questions. Number one, do I want to spend the available capital that I have in the business on a non-core business asset? Do I have the in-house capability to manage the asset? Do I have a good understanding of the ongoing operational expenses? And I guess the last one, would I prefer a specialist service provider to take all operational risks? So if you answered no to questions 1 to 3 and yes to question 4, then a PPA is probably the right option for your business. So here again, as with the outright purchase options, I just thought I'd show you a couple of real life examples of some PPA commercial outcomes. We've picked a couple of different system sizes. Also, these systems are installed in different jurisdictions, therefore qualifying for different incentives, as we've mentioned throughout as well. So if you have a look at example 1 on a 10-year PPA agreement, the customer's energy rate was 22.7 cents. We were able to offer them a PPA rate of 10.2 cents a kilowatt hour, which is a reduction of 55% on their energy cost. So that returned $49,000 in the first year to them, free positive cash flow. And over 10 years, that ended up being $545,000. And again, just to reiterate, all operation and maintenance and things like that are included in a PPA. It's taken care of by us as we own the asset. Option 2, a bit of a larger system, 2.5 megawatts over a 12-year term. This site is actually in Victoria, so it qualifies for VEECs. The customer's energy rate was 12.5 cents per kilowatt hour, and this was a rooftop system. The PPA rate we were able to offer them was 5.98 cents per kilowatt hour over a 12-year term, which is a 52% reduction in their energy costs, returning $193,000 in the first year and over $2.2 million over 10 years. Now, the last one's probably the most attractive PPA rate we've ever offered to any client. 3.7 megawatt system over 20 years. The customer's rate is 10.5 cents. And this customer, again, based in Victoria, was able to take advantage of a VEEC subsidy. The PPA rate we were able to offer them was 3.65 cents per kilowatt hour, which is 65% below their rate of 10.5. That returned $443,000 in the first year and over $5 million over 10 years. So hopefully that gives you an idea of the range of possibilities for PPAs and the results that we can bring. That last example there, and the reason why we're able to get so low on that particular customer was because the system was installed on a ground-mounted system with single-axis trackers as well. So we're able to increase the generation, and that's some things, they're things that we can do in the design to further enhance the financial outcomes of a solar system. So finally, just a case study on a PPA. CUV are an example of a customer that proceeded with solar with us under a PPA arrangement. The reason they did this is because they didn't want to spend their capital on non-core business assets. So, we all know who CUV are. They make beer and they're pretty good at it. We're good at building and maintaining solar assets. So we've provided the solution, and they just simply enjoy the benefits of cheaper electricity. So I hope this section gave you a good understanding of the factors that impact the financial outcomes, as well as some of your procurement options. I'll now hand back to Ewan to discuss some exciting opportunities beyond solar.
Thank you. Good one, Max. I don't think the cheap electricity translated to cheaper beer, unfortunately. Got a lot of breweries, haven't we? Beyond solar, a bit of blue sky thinking. So, the point here is that we're aware that most of our customers, most of you listening, are on a journey, and really the intent is to become as independent, as self-sufficient, and as renewable as possible. And we are, in effect, technology agnostic because we're solutions focused. So while solar is the best thing right now, we know that in the future, there's going to be new opportunities to take you further down that line. Solar can generally achieve about 30 to 40% of your needs on your roof, provided you've got the roof space to accommodate it. So what happens after you've installed solar? Well, then there comes more energy procurement with energy action. And but then on site, what are you going to do? You're going to increase your solar system, you're going to put in storage, and we're going to have a look at other technologies that are going to help you reduce your carbon footprint. So at the moment, Energy Action have a really good product where they can help you satisfy the 65% that you're going to continue to buy from the grid with their green energy strategies. And these products that EA's come out with are, a really good example of what they can do through clever procurement to help you along your journey. But whilst storage is not exactly financially sensible for everyone, it will be over the next few years. So you're going to probably look at a storage system within the next 5 years, which you'll do your 35% of solar right now. And then over the next 5 years, we'll be adding more solar and that storage system, and you'll reduce your grid consumption down to about 20%. To get that last 20% of grid consumption eliminated with solar and storage basically costs you about 100% more than your current stage 2 already does. So that last 20% is a very expensive 20% to get rid of. But there will be some other technology that satisfies that. We don't know what it is yet. That's why this is kind of a journey for all of us. But we're open to the opportunity. And as long as we understand the data and as long as we're working with you, we'll be there when that technology arrives. So solar and storage, this is a mega pack, a Tesla big battery, 2.7 megawatts being installed for an electric bus company, actually. That was installed, I think, last week, completed last week. And this is probably the first financially sensible battery that we've installed, other than one in Alice Springs, which has been out there for about 6 years and doing very well, taking the Bunnings site there off the grid by 80%. This is a new factory that we're doing in Alexandria. We're filling their roof with 600 kilowatts of solar. We're putting in 2 big batteries. And the purpose of this battery, the only way that we could get it to be financially sensible was by playing in all energy markets at once. So it's performing demand management or demand management behind the meter. It's offsetting kilowatt hours, but out into the grid, it's also playing in demand response, which is one market. It's playing in FCAS, which is a very short energy market. And it's getting paid to exist in the case of emergency supplies, as well as other financial mechanisms that are making this battery financially sensible. But it is generally very hard to get financial sensibility. And unfortunately, lithium prices are on the increase due to EV demand. It's unlikely that lithium will follow the Moore's Law's curve that has had such an influence on solar. When I first started in this industry 15 years ago, a 7 kilowatt system I sold for $120,000, horrific, for what you could probably buy cheap now for about $6,000. So that sort of scale of cost reduction isn't going to happen as well in storage, but there's other ways to save money. The third idea, which should be considered now, is demand management. This is managing your peaks of demand behind the meter with sophisticated technology. So we can install some monitoring equipment and device control for things like air conditioners or pumps or discretionary loads, and this allows you to get rid of this spike. So this is a really real customer example. You can see this is their month of March, and for some reason unbeknown to us at the time, or unbeknown to the customer, they have this massive demand moment. Now they pay for that demand in a kVA charge. Some customers pay for that demand moment as a capacity charge over time, which, you know, that may last for an entire year because of that one single moment where all of their machinery turned on at once. Now, if we were able to manage that, if that was an air conditioning load, and the machine learning would say, I can see that everything's turning on, let's turn off the air conditioners so that we prevent this, this moment from happening. One, you can reduce your energy bill significantly, and two, you can actually get paid for it by your retailer. So demand management can reduce your demand by up to 20%, which is your kVA charge on your energy bill. It can reduce your consumption by up to 5%. And it also can load more loads into solar hours. If it sees that solar is exporting, you may program this thing, or we may program this device to turn air conditioners on, or to lower the temperature, or to pump water, or to do other functions that are discretionary. So demand management is really a very logical step for you to consider for each one of your businesses. And there'll be other technology. We're undertaking some work for a food manufacturer using biogas. We're taking them 100% off grid, 100% off gas, and 100% off heat, and making them basically process food waste into energy and heat, which is an amazing product. Yes, solar is in our name, but unfortunately, we've developed too many skills, and we're operating in other energy factors as well. And that brings me to one of my favorite sites, which is McCain's. It's definitely one of the more beautiful installations we've undertaken with the in a paddock, and tracking solar using a special panel called a bifacial panel, which can absorb sunlight from behind, reflected off the ground. And we're also putting in a 1.2 meg of cogen, operating off the gas produced by fermenting potato skins. So when you think of your chips, next time you go get some hot chips, think of McCain's, because that's probably where it came from. And then think of smart commercial solar, and remind yourself of this webinar. Remember the QR code, and remember to reach out to Vincent and the team there at EA. And I think we're going to answer some questions. Yeah, we've got time for that, Vincent?
Yeah, we do. We have time for some questions.
I'll get some. We'll get all of us in the shot so that we can open up the chat. All right, Max, what's the minimum system size for a PPA? You might want to get in shot there a bit more. Come close. I won't lie.
Look, there's probably not a minimum. I mean, typically around 30 kilowatts is probably about the smallest system size that we do for a PPA. So that's probably about where it would be, about 30 kilowatts.
Yeah, I think we've shown a lot of large rooftops, but I think there's a lot of potentially a lot of listeners here who are not as big as 500 kilowatts. It is important to note that you know, whatever your business is, we'll find a solution for it. Can you see any other questions there, Vincent?
I think that winds us up in terms of the questions. Just 20 seconds. If anyone else has a quick question they want to throw the guys' way. I can't thank you enough, boys, for being on the panel today. It was so informative. It was awesome. So if there are no further questions, we might wrap it up. Just a reminder to everybody about what we do. We are one of Australia's largest procurement brokerages. We help companies save a lot of money, mitigate risk, and help take you on that sustainable journey. So I think I just saw, actually, but while I was wrapping up there, I saw one more question, or I saw a couple more questions. Can you see those, guys?
Yeah, so what is the life expectancy of panels and inverters? I'll answer that. So, so we use a couple of brands, and just this year, Trina Solar, who's our major brand and we're their major client in APAC, have outlasted their warranty. So they turned 25 years old this year. And typically solar panels come with a 25-year warranty. Some of the newer panels that we're using come with a 30-year warranty, and they do last that long. Over about 100 megawatts of installations, we've only had about 200 or 300 kilowatts of warranty issues in that in the last 10 years as smart commercial solar. So really they are pretty robust. In terms of inverters, we usually offer a 10-year warranty on the inverter. A good quality inverter will outlast 10 years. A cheap and nasty will maybe get you 5 years. The thing to remember about anything you do with solar is that, you know, if you're going to save 2 or 3% by getting a cheaper system, it's like using and I don't want to particularly slur a brand, but it's kind of like asking a Hyundai to do the job of a Toyota. The solar system sits in a very harsh environment on your roof, exposed to the sun and all weather, and it has to do a lot of work every day. Getting a robust system is the most important thing. And that's why we operate and maintain. We monitor everything we've installed, and we provide service to this product long term, because ultimately it's about energy over time.
There's a question there around the cheapest PPA rate of 3.25 cents. What was that fixed, or did it have an inflation per annum? So that had a 2.5% inflation per annum. So there's obviously a couple of things you can do with your PPA. We can offer a fixed price for the period. We can offer an inflating price, which will obviously result in a more attractive price in the earlier years. We can also do things like flip it around and go the other way and have the price reducing over time. So the good thing about PPA is it's flexible. It's not one size fits all. They're all pretty bespoke, and it's about finding the right solution for your business based on your situation. So there's a lot of things we can do there.
You've got another one there that says,
do you
can
partner?
business self-fund?
Do you partner with commercial funders to help businesses self-fund their system installs? If you're talking about you're in the business of raising capital to invest into solar assets and create a return, yes, we'd be more than happy to have a chat with you. We obviously have a number of partners in this space, but I'm more than happy to open up a discussion about that.
Guys, can you see the question about DC optimization for the panels?
Yeah, that's a really good question, actually, because there's a few proponents of that type of technology. So DC optimizers, to explain for the listener, is there are devices that you can install on the back of each panel that so-called DC optimize the output of every panel, rather than getting an entire string of panels or a group of panels to sort of average out. What we found with DC optimization and micro inverters, basically this optimizing single panel idea, is that they haven't actually performed better. They cost a little bit more. They underperform, in fact. They promise about 3% more performance or annual output. And we've actually found it to be the opposite to be true. And when they fail, it's a very expensive repair process, because you've got to go lift up every single panel to fix them. So we're not big proponents of that type of technology. We haven't seen the benefit. We were the largest installer of this type of technology in its early years. But frankly speaking, most commercial rooftops, they're not suffering from isolated areas of shade. They don't need to optimize each individual panel, and the added cost doesn't add a better yield.
I think just to add to that, I don't think it should be a question of string inverter or optimizer. I think there can be cases where, if there are problem areas of a site that may have shading or things like that, you can optimize particular areas of the system rather than optimizing the whole system, which you're then adding significant amount of points of failure to your system for not a significant benefit. So I think, look, for us, we're pretty agnostic. We have gone down the optimizer path previously. We've got our own experiences with it. We take a more balanced approach these days if it is required.
I have an internal
Ultimately,
question.
we're selling yield. We're trying to sell annual yield or results over time, and that's the most important thing. We want something that's really robust, that's going to generate what we promised or exceed it, and deliver a financial benefit to the client. Sorry, Vince.
One question from a listener here in the room is the value of the maintenance through the PPA. Can you shed some light on what that looks like, what that process is? Is it an annual inspection, and what would you expect to find through that inspection? What is the value of that?
Yeah. So obviously under a PPA, we're taking care of all of the operation and maintenance throughout the whole entire term of the agreement, as it's essentially our asset on the customer's site. So our maintenance costs are all wrapped into that single price per kilowatt hour that the customer pays on their electricity bill. And essentially what the maintenance covers is it covers regular annual maintenance that's required to do preventative maintenance. It includes any reactive maintenance that might need to happen if there was an issue on the site or if we lost communications on the site. It'll include panel cleaning if we decide that over time that the solar system performance is dropping due to soiling on solar panels. We'll come out and clean the solar panels. All of these things are taken care of, and the customer doesn't need to monitor, doesn't need to think about the performance, because our best interests are that the system performs as good as it needs to, because we're getting paid on a per kilowatt hour basis. So the good thing about the PPA is the needs of the client and ourselves are really well aligned, because we want the system to perform, and in fact we want the system to overperform if possible. So it creates a neat little partnership in that sense.
Yeah.
And there's one last question here, I hope you can see it, which is about harmonic feedback.
Yeah. Harmonic feedback. So the solar systems are designed to effectively match what you've got going on in your site and just add power into it. So if you've got some power quality issues on your site, solar will not correct it for you. It could potentially exacerbate the issue, but we would know about that prior. But it doesn't create a new issue for you. Solar is very, very tightly controlled in how it interacts with the grid and with the site. What we've found actually is solar is actually extremely solid, but things like they call voltage optimizers, which seems it's created a lot of problems for people. So we actually end up finding a lot of problems on sites, and we end up fixing them as part of our scope ultimately. And solar is actually a solution to some of these problems. But because we take such a deep dive into your energy situation, we get to find out whether or not technology that you may have installed is working well. Just like demand management, we saved one customer who was turning on all their electric forklift chargers at once at 9:30 at night. They created one single spike every night. All we had to do is put in a timer between those devices, and we saved them $20,000 a year just in something pretty sensible. But it comes back to understanding the data and then designing a system appropriate to the need. I diverted off the topic, but ultimately, no, we don't cause any problems for you.
Guys, I've just been given the signal to wrap it up. It's been a fantastic forum. Thank you so much for for everything, for giving us all that information and the questions you've just taken and answered. A quick reminder to everyone watching, for all of your energy needs, procurement, net zero, sustainability needs, whatever it may be, head to our website, www.energyaction.com.au. Reach out to one of our 20 or so sales guys, and they'll help you out with whatever you need. And don't forget to scan that QR code and set up a time to get an assessment happening for your solar. On that note, thanks very much for attending today, and wherever you are, go well, take care, talk soon.
All right. Thanks, guys.
All the best.